Are Harry's words ringing hollow? That's what I found myself thinking, reading through his statement, reflecting on his grandmother, her life, and their relationship. And I began thinking to myself, it's like, well, you cite your grandmother as a compass to service and duty, yet you abandoned your service and duty when she was faithful for 70 years. Even 2 days before her death, she was greeting the next prime minister, her 15th. That life of dedicated duty and service you just can't match. Or when it comes to her hugging her great-grandchildren. Now, I know they were beloved, and I totally believe that when it comes to her. However, her meetings with Archie and Lilibet were very, very few and far between. And according to reports, Her Majesty only met Lilibet in person one single time. Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and on this channel we talk about everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We will do it all right here, so if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And like I said, we'll be just dissecting the statement from Harry. I'm not criticizing him at all for making it, but when I just look at it, it just raises a couple red flags. And I mean, there's clearly something hypocritical there. But before we go into it, let's just discuss where we are right now in the official mourning of Queen Elizabeth II. Today, her hearse was driven from Holyrood House up to St. Giles Cathedral up in Edinburgh, and she was accompanied by her 4 children who walked silently behind, and it was just a beautiful, moving moment interrupted by one idiot. So this man decided to scream at Prince Andrew, who has acted with nothing but decorum in this situation. So go ahead and take a listen.
Really is the beginning of that long procession, which started with the transfer of the coffin from Balmoral to Edinburgh by road on Sunday, and now takes on this.
All right, guys, I think when somebody is mourning a family member, and really, you know, this is just deeply inappropriate. It's not the time, it's not the place. If this was somewhere else, you know, perhaps, but still, I'm not into publicly shaming someone. And honestly, as well, when it comes to Prince Andrew, there is no evidence that he has actually done anything wrong. Now, don't let me tell you that, you know, something didn't happen. Of course it could have with his accuser, but we have no actual physical evidence. There's been no trial, and he technically, in the eyes of the court and the law, is still innocent. So I just take issue with that, and I do feel like I have some conflicted feelings when it would come to booing Harry and Meghan. I think it was totally appropriate what the crowd did when it came to Windsor, but I just feel like in my heart, if I had seen them out by themselves doing a walkabout, it would have been hard not to boo, because, you know, you don't know if they're utilizing that time for Netflix. But when it came to this church service, I think one of the most beautiful moments was when Charles and Edward and Andrew, all of her children, came over and stood vigil over her coffin. So go ahead and take a look at this somber moment.
4 siblings make their vigil to their beloved mother and our late queen. And so we'll just lower their heads, very simply.
All right, guys, I just think, I love that, because you feel the emotion of everyone. They were, you know, their mother, to a certain extent, somewhat when they were younger. I think especially with Charles and Anne, she was somewhat distant. But I think what happens in families, I feel like, is, you know, once the matriarch or the patriarch ages, sometimes, you know, the kids, where there was kind of a feeling of rebellion, come back around and they surround their parents. And I think throughout her final years, especially after the passing of Prince Philip, her children really came around her and really supported her to the best of their abilities. And I feel like we really feel the emotion and see the emotion here. And it was also pretty awesome to see Princess Anne standing vigil, as she is the first woman to do so in this situation. I had planned at one point to kind of do a video talking about how Catherine and Camilla are the real feminists of the monarchy, and I feel ashamed to admit that I did not include Princess Anne on that list. So we will go ahead, when I do that video at some point, obviously after all this is done, I will definitely include her there. So tomorrow, Her Majesty's coffin will be transported down to London. So today we saw a bunch of people file past and pay their respects, and you know, they bowed their head or they curtsied. And I just think, again, there's that reverence and respect for who she was, not only as a monarch, but I think as a person, as a woman of faith, and somebody who was just deeply, deeply devoted to her country. I mean, she gave up basically her whole life for the United Kingdom in many ways. And granted, being queen is nice. I was reading a biography about Her Majesty, and that was kind of one of in the introductory paragraph. I mean, it's good to be queen, no doubt. But, you know, she had to give up a lot. She gave up a lot of, especially her younger years with her children, to travel around the world on very, very long, long trips in order to make sure that she established her reign, especially as a young woman. I mean, she started this journey when she was 25 years old. I mean, that is just incredible. The burden that she had to bear as a young married woman, as a young mother. I mean, there's just nobody like Queen Elizabeth throughout time. She is just so, so, so impressive. And I just admire someone, especially in this day and age where young people can seem flippant, can seem uninterested in, you know, duty and service and, you know, just even working sometimes, that she was able to do all this. I think she shames basically any generation that comes after her. And I think she also deeply shames Harry. And again, granted, I was expecting a statement from him, absolutely. But the lack of insight, the lack of, you know, awareness of the hypocrisy of what he was saying when it came to his grandmother is just, I think, so, so apparent. And it's just, again, so completely sad that Harry just does not understand, or, you know, perhaps Meghan wrote it, doesn't seem to understand that, you know, when it comes to duty and sacrifice, Her Majesty is the example of that. Harry is the antithesis. He ran away from his problems. He ran away from his country, his family, his service, his duty. And all he can say now is, well, the Queen's, you know, she was my compass. So it's like, well, you kind of abandoned that compass. Now your compass is your wife. And we are told to respect our elders. And honestly, she is a fantastic example. Meghan's not really. So guys, let me go ahead and listen and read to you some of this statement here. He began, "In celebrating the life of my grandmother, Her Majesty the Queen, and in mourning her loss, we are all reminded of the guiding compass she was to so many in her commitment to service and duty." Well, clearly she wasn't to you. So I don't know quite what he is saying. I mean, she was an example to everybody else, but when it came to Harry, not so much. And not to mention the fact he made her life so difficult in her final years, attacking her family, attacking her legacy, even the Commonwealth. So go ahead and take a listen to this about what Harry and Meghan are saying and disparaging the organization that she helped create and then gave them the position of president and vice president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. So take a listen here.
When you look across the Commonwealth, there's no way that we can move forward unless we acknowledge the past. And I think so many people have done such an amazing, incredible job of acknowledging the past and trying to right those wrongs. But I think we all acknowledge on here that there is so much more still to do. It's not going to be easy, and in some cases it's not going to be comfortable, but it needs to be done because guess what? Everybody benefits. So I think there's a hell of a lot that we together need to acknowledge. But I only see hope and optimism in the fact that we could only do this together.
We have to, in this moment in time, say, we're going to have to be a little uncomfortable right now, because it's only in pushing through that discomfort that we get to the other side of this and find the place, as you're pointing out, where a high tide raises all ships. Equality does not put anyone on the back foot. It puts us all on the same footing, which is a fundamental human right. And that's what we're talking about here.
I just think it goes to show again that Harry is completely disrespectful, completely disingenuous when it comes to this. He doesn't know what service is. He doesn't know what duty is. He abandoned it for the sake of fame and fortune, the shallowest of reasons. And so you just look at this statement like that and it just sounds so completely tone deaf to what's going on. And understanding, I mean, I think of William and his family. Their lives are going to radically change. His family is going to be pulled in so many more different directions now. He will be asked to step up in ways that he has been able to not do at the time, spending more time with his family. Now he has these duties and he has to do all of this in front of the world while everybody else, while he is mourning, while his family is mourning. He has to go up and go to these privy council meetings and do these official things with his father. And you just think of his father as well. And Princess Anne, there is no greater workforce in the monarchy than Princess Anne. She is an example to what Harry could have been and should have been. He should have been the next generation's Princess Anne. And just because she actually does generally more engagements, royal engagements, than anybody else in the family. And she does them without fuss. She does them without, she talks straight. She talks as it is. She is funny. She is engaging. And you just look at Harry and go, every time I see him, I think, golly, you guys look like you have no fun whatsoever, because everything looks so controlled and managed with Prince Harry and Meghan. So I just think, again, he doesn't even understand this, but he feels like he has to say it because everybody's saying it. And apparently, if he says it enough, maybe it might come true for him, or maybe people will believe it. He continues, she was globally admired and respected, except by her own grandson. Just saying that. Her unwavering grace and dignity remained true throughout her life and now her everlasting legacy. And I will say the monarchy and the Queen has dealt with Harry and Meghan with nothing but grace and dignity. I mean, Harry and Meghan have thrown the monarchy under the bus so many times, and they've just kind of ridden the wave and went, okay, recollections may vary. That is your statement. That is not our belief, but we'll let you have it. They have dealt with Harry and Meghan with nothing but the utmost grace given the situation. And I think it's completely, again, shows how Harry and Meghan just do not admire really anything about her or do not reflect any of her values, because they are the antithesis of it. They were the antagonists of this story instead of the champions of it. They're trying to break down the institutions, the monarchy that she helped to build, instead of contributing to it. They didn't see the greater good in the monarchy. They only saw, well, they are not getting enough attention. They're not getting enough money. Ergo, we need to go to a place where we'll get more attention and more money. And again, how sad is that? He goes, let us echo the words she spoke after the passing of her husband, Prince Philip. Words which can bring comfort to all of us now. Quote, life, of course, consists of final partings as well as first meetings. The wording here is weird. So he's going from this personal, my grandmother, to her husband, Prince Philip. Like, can't you say my grandfather? So you could almost see where it was actually an informal statement that Harry was writing, and then somebody came in and goes, oh, okay, well, this needs to be from Archwell, from Meghan or whatever, and said, her husband. It's like, is he not your grandfather? Is your grandfather somebody else? I mean, a lot of people do suggest Harry is somebody else's son. I do not believe in that notion whatsoever. I just don't. Harry looks actually a lot like Prince Philip. And so again, it's just this kind of slight disrespect and swipe here. It's like, you can't call your grandfather. You have to call him her husband. You can call your grandfather Prince Philip, my grandfather, Papa, whatever. I think that again shows familiarity, but this all of a sudden goes from familiarity to kind of corporate speak here. Something that, somebody else would report about this situation. Somebody else would, in writing an obituary, would say rather than her own grandson. And then he goes, again, switching back from personal to corporate to personal again. Granny, while this final parting brings us great sadness, I am forever grateful for all of our first meetings, from my earliest childhood memories with you, to meeting you for the first time as my commander-in-chief, to the first moment you met my darling wife and hugged your beloved great-grandchildren. Meghan had to get her little bit in there. My darling wife. Did he really have to say that? No. He could have just said my wife. Just to compare Prince William's statement here, I think what he said, and he just said my wife, was more powerful given what William actually said. On Thursday, the world lost an extraordinary leader whose commitment to the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth was absolute. So much will be said in the days ahead about the meaning of her historic reign. I, however, have lost a grandmother, and while I will grieve her loss, I also feel incredibly grateful. I have had the benefit of the Queen's wisdom and reassurance into my 5th decade. My wife has had 20 years of her guidance and support. My 3 children have got to spend holidays with her and create memories that will last a lifetime. She was by my side at my happiest moments, and she was by my side during the saddest days of my life. Honestly, that tears me up just reading it. It really does. Because it's just so poignant. You know, Kate's had her guidance and wisdom for 20 years. Ever since they started dating, Catherine has been able to rely on Her Majesty. And that just little bit tells us this long-term deep relationship that Catherine and Her Majesty the Queen have, because there will only be so many queens in the United Kingdom in its history, and Catherine will be one of them. And so while she will not be the reigning monarch, she is, you know, somebody who will have a similar role to Her Majesty. Her Majesty probably took her under her wing, explained the different historic provinces of jewelry, of, you know, different pieces of furniture, paintings, what they've meant to her, because Catherine has spent time, and their kids have spent time with her. They've gone up to Balmoral. You know, Catherine shared this story that she would leave little treats for the kids on their bed. So go ahead and take a listen to this.
She always leaves a little gift or something in their room when we go and stay, and that just shows, I think, her love for her family.
So I just love that, because you see the intimacy, even in those brief words, which were not, you know, overly verbose and everything, because everybody can connect with somebody who has experienced loss and knows what it's like to have their grandparents there, giving them kind of that guidance that they need. So those words moved me because I can feel them. I understand them. I can, you know, even though they're not, let's say, you know, flowery and have that, you know, great kind of, you know, rhythm that Harry's do, I feel like Catherine and William knew Her Majesty, spent time with Her Majesty, spent time with her as a family. But I don't get that from Harry. He says, you know, talks about first meetings. It's like, but she's your grandmother. Like, why are you talking about first meetings? That doesn't even make a ton of sense, really. And then when you talk about the first time you met my darling wife, well, that doesn't tell us anything about their relationship. That just says they met at one point. A lot of people have met the Queen. Does that make Meghan all that special? No. She's met the Queen like everybody else. And it's like, I need to add that qualifier there, my darling wife. Again, it goes into this narrative that we see play out with them. I'm not saying this narrative because necessarily it's like I want to tack that onto them. It's just because I see it, that they have to be tactile. He has to, you know, when we saw them doing that walkabout, Harry had to open and shut the door for her. The future Queen of England got in her own gosh darn car. And I know people criticize William for not doing the same thing, but you could see there were a lot of people around. There's security. Most likely the security is going to open and close the door for Catherine. That's how William and Catherine probably have lived most of their lives, is somebody opening and shutting doors for them. The act that Harry did just seems like something he has to do. He has to do this. He has to have these grand gestures to appease her. Whereas Catherine and William, their gestures are much smaller, and yet they're deeper in meaning. They don't need to have the grand gesture to prove their love. They are in love, and they are best friends too. And you feel that Harry and Meghan have concocted this, you know, deep, passionate love affair. But you know how most deep, passionate love affairs end? Oftentimes they end in tragedy, because the foundation, I think, of truly strong marriages is friendship, is people who not only love each other, but they genuinely want to spend time together, and they are just generally good friends. I can speak to this in my experience. I just spent some time with my grandparents. They have been married 70 years. I kid you not, 70 years. And they are still just like, you could just feel the love between them. And it's not something like, you know, you're playing card games and it's just the little things, just you can see the banter between them. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And they don't need to call each other darling to get that across. And then we get to hugging her beloved great-grandchildren. Well, you didn't seem to care about that much, Harry. Honestly, you didn't. Lilibet met Her Majesty one single time for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And apparently, according to reports, if I remember correctly, the meeting was not long because you could not bring your own personal photographer to capture that magical moment. And I think that would have been fine in other cases. I think if Catherine and William had a personal photographer they brought and they wanted to get some great pictures with Her Majesty, I mean, we're planning on doing that with our family for my grandmother's birthday because she'll be turning 90 this year. We want to get some great family pictures that a professional takes instead of, you know, us just taking them or whatever. The palace knew that Harry and Meghan were most likely going to sell the pictures. That's what they knew they were going to do. So they didn't let them do it because there's no trust there. So if Catherine and William, I think, had come in and said, we want to make sure we capture some fantastic memories for ourselves, I think the palace would have approved and they would have believed Catherine and William. They don't believe Harry and Meghan. Ergo, the meeting was short because Harry and Meghan couldn't exploit Her Majesty for their own gain. So they made the meeting short. And how sad is that? In addition, Archie hardly met Her Majesty. He's hardly spent any time with his grandfather or his uncle or any of his cousins. He only saw them a handful of times. So what is this about hugging your great-grandchildren? You didn't seem to care if she hugged them. In fact, you dismissed meeting her a couple of days before her death to your own detriment because, again, it's all about making money with you. Unless you can exploit this meeting, you don't want to do it. And again, the only people who are losing here are your own children. Those are the only people who have lost here. And not to mention the fact Charles is most likely not going to give them a title. I think in part because why would he give titles to somebody he doesn't see and doesn't know? So Harry's talking about all this and I understand that he's lost someone and I'm not disparaging that at all. What I am saying is that his words ring exceedingly hollow because he didn't make any effort. You know what I was thinking about today? You know what, Harry and Meghan, if they really wanted to make this California thing work and they had gone about it the right way, they went with a scorched earth policy, give us our demands, they made their demands, and when things didn't work out this way, they're just sitting there going, oh, well, why didn't you give us everything we wanted? Why couldn't we be part-time working royals? Have everybody pay for our security, have people pay for our travel when we go to Commonwealth countries because we are representing Her Majesty, and basically, I mean, it was going to be basically a tax-funded vacation. That's basically what they wanted, and they didn't get it, and so they left, and I understand COVID happened and they couldn't get back easily, but you know what? If they had done this right, maybe they could have said, you know what? We do want out. This is just not for us. We'll stay on until the Queen passes. We'll stay in the UK. That way we can spend some time with her, allow our kids to spend some time with her, and they can have that bond. And, you know, maybe Harry and Meghan do have that pictures or can have those pictures of Her Majesty with all her great-grandchildren, like we do with the Cambridges and all the other kids, the Waleses. And all the other kids, great-grandchildren, were pictured together. And I'm sure there were multiple times where those pictures were taken. And perhaps even all the great-grandchildren, we saw this video, all of them were at Windsor one day. And you know what? I bet you there is a picture somewhere of Her Majesty with all of them together. Granted, they were playing on a coach, and I thought maybe it was going to be an official portrait we see. Perhaps we will one day, but I bet you there was a photography session with the Queen and all of her great-grandchildren because they were all there, but Archie and Lily, they missed out and they only have their parents to blame. He ends it by saying, I cherish these times shared with you and the many other special moments in between. You are already sorely missed, not just by us, but by the world over. And as it comes to first meetings, we now honor my father in his new role as King Charles III. Thank you for your commitment to service. Thank you for your sound advice. Thank you for your infectious smile. We too smile, knowing you and Grandpa are reunited now and both together in peace. Again, I just feel like, even though, again, Harry should make a statement, absolutely, but all the words ring hollow there because he did not follow his grandmother's legacy. He tried to destroy it. He tried to destroy all of that his grandmother has worked for in order to satisfy Meghan Markle's greed, I think, and his own inferiority complex that he wasn't the heir, but instead the spare. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what you think about kind of Harry's statement, and let me know what you think about this beautiful moment we had of all the Queen's children, surrounding her coffin and paying once again their respects by standing visual, by honoring her in these quiet moments, because it really truly is something to behold and something very beautiful. So thank you guys for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.